Alright guys, in the last video we set up our application and we created the navbar component as well as the question list component, and we're basically outputting a set of questions and answers that are hard-coded in an array. What I want to do now is I want to initially hide the answer and then put a show link next to the question, and then we'll have to click the show link to show each answer. Alright, so let's go back into Visual Studio Code and let's open up our question list component TS file. And I'm going to add an additional value to each question, and that's going to be hide, okay, which is going to be a Boolean. So let's say hide, and I'm going to initially set this to true because we want them to initially be hidden, and then we want to click the show button to show the answer. Alright, so let's go right here and say hide, set that to true, hide, true. Alright, then we're going to go to the question list HTML file and go right next to the question text right here, and let's put we'll put an A tag with the class of btn and then btn-link, which is a Bootstrap 4 class. Let's just put a number sign in there, and then let's say show, and then we want to have an event here. Okay, we want to click event, and what I'll do is just set this to, let's say, question.hide, and then to toggle it we can do question hide equals not question.hide. So if it's hidden it'll show it, if it's shown then it'll hide it. Okay, now it's going to toggle this value here, this hide. It's going to change it from true to false, or false to true, but it's not going to do anything yet as far as in the UI. If we go and we try to click this, you'll see that nothing happens. What we need to do is make sure that this is not shown unless that hide value is false, and we're going to use property binding for that, and we've already gone over property binding. What we'll do is let's add it to this card block div right here. So we're going to say bracket hidden, and then we're going to set that to whatever question dot hide is. Okay, so we'll save that, and now if we go you'll see that they're now hidden by default because hide is true by default. If I click show, it's going to take that specific question and that answer and it's going to show the answer. Okay, and I can toggle it back and forth, so for each one I can do that. Alright, if I were to set any of these to false, so let's say the first one we don't want to hide, and we go back and now you see the first one is now shown by default, but we can still toggle it. So what I want to do now, let me just put that back to hide true for that first one. What I want to do now is generate a service so that we can store our questions there. Okay, because right now they're just in the constructor. Now later on I want these questions to come from local storage so that they're not just hard-coded and we can actually save new questions and so on. But for now we're going to keep them hard-coded but move them to a service. So let's open up our terminal here and let's do ng service into the services folder, and then we're going to create a service called data. Okay, so you can see that created a services folder and then this data.service.ts file, and it puts in our initial class. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move from the component this .questions right here that's in the constructor. I'm just going to cut that whole thing out and go to the service and put that in the service constructor like that. Okay, and we need to set our questions right here. And then I'm going to create an interface for our questions. So let's say question, and that's going to be an array. Okay, right now it's going to give us an error because we didn't create the question interface or the question model yet. Alright, so what I'm going to do is create outside of the components and services, right in the app folder, I'm going to create a folder called models. And in here, let's say new file, and we'll call this question.ts. And then in here we're going to create an interface. We need to make sure we export it because this is a separate file. So let's say export interface question. Okay, and each question we know has to have a text value, which is going to be a string. It has to have an answer, which will be a string, and it has to have a hide value, which will be a Boolean. Okay, so we'll save that, close that up, and then we need to bring that into our service. So let's say import question, and that's going to be from, we want to go outside of the services folder, and we want to go into the models folder and then into question. Okay, so now you can see that red squiggly line is now gone. And then what I want to do is go below the constructor and create a function called getQuestions. And then all this is going to do right now is just return this dot questions. All right, and then we want to load this service into our component and pull them from here as opposed to just right inside of our component. So when we create a service, it has to get added to app.module. We know that from before. So let's go to app.module TS, and we're going to bring in, let's say, import, and we're going to bring in, we called it data service, and that's going to be from /services/ what was it, data.service, and then we need to add it as a provider, just like that. All right, so we'll save that, and then let's go into our question list component and bring in our service. So we'll say import data service, and that's going to be from /services/data.service. Okay, we need to inject it as a dependency into our constructor parameters. So let's say public data service and set that to capital D data service. All right, so we can now use anything inside of our data service, and we want this get questions. Okay, so we're going to just go into our ng on init when our component's initialized, and we're going to say this dot questions and set it equal to this dot data service dot get questions. Okay, it's going to pull it from the service. Now right here we're just setting questions to an object, but let's bring in our model so that we can use that interface we created. So we'll say import question, and that's going to be from dot, what is it, dot / models, actually we got to go out twice, models / question, and then right here instead of just using object we'll be more specific and we'll use our question interface. All right, so let's go ahead and save, and we should look the same. Okay, good. So it looks the exact same. Let's make sure we can show. Good. All right, so I mean, there's no difference in the UI, but the structure of the application is much better because now we're actually pulling data from the service. Okay, even though it's hard-coded, later on we're going to implement local storage and we can save our questions there. All right, but I think this is good for now. In the next video, I want to get into nesting components, which is something we haven't gone into yet in this course. Instead of just loading the questions right from the question list component, we're going to create a separate questions component and then nest that within the list component. All right, so we'll do that next.